So, my brother thinks he can go behind my back and steal my car. Well, you know what? I wasn't going to stand for this because I'm really attached to this car. It's the only thing that I have left between me and my father. And then, I decide I'm going to get this car back because I'll just do this. I've never actually written one of these myself, so forgive me if my formatting's off or it's a bit rambly. I'll try to condense it a little bit because there's a lot to get through. But I hope that at least some people are willing to read through it all and give me some honest feedback, because at this point I think I'm close to it all to think objectively anymore. This mostly revolves around me. I'm 31, male, and my brother. Looking at our ages, I would not blame you if you first thought that it was, well, we're too old for me to be posting our dirty laundry online instead of just talking it through like adults. I agree. But I also think that I've exhausted the talking it through option with him. For the purpose of this post and in the interest of not doxing myself, I'll be referring to my brother as Jake. Jake and I used to be super close. We're not that far apart in age, and we had a lot of the same interests as children. So as many siblings do, we spent every waking moment together up until we started middle school. Kids change as they get older, I get it. While Jake got more social and athletic, I became more introverted and intellectual. We both loved school. Jake was so good at soccer that our middle school coach offered him, well, basically sponsored him, his gear every season when our mom could not afford it, and I just really like learning stuff. We were on opposite ends of the spectrum. See, he was the popular jock, and I was the reclusive nerd, but we still got on like a house on fire. When I say that I was a huge nerd, I really mean it. The year that Jake was set to go to high school, I ended up joining him. We'd only been a grade apart, so I wasn't making such a huge leap, but that 1 year of difference seemed to have made all the difference for Jake. It was like a switch just flipped in his brain, and he went from being the older brother that would let me hang out with him and his friends after practice to the JV jock, who would not even look at me in the hallway. The jump to high school wasn't doing me any favors either, where Jake easily made new friends despite our move to a new district. I was the dorky, younger kid, and I didn't even have the blessing of looking my age or older. I definitely looked like a child, and everyone noticed, and I'd never done too well socially. But high school was a particularly hard time for me. The cherry on top, losing a previously close relationship with my brother. He'd been my best friend. I know I wasn't his, but for me, he'd always been there. Our dad passed when we were young, and though I love my mom more than anything, she could not always be there for us and make ends meet at the same time. Jake had always made up the difference, and he's the one who taught me how to ride a bike, for Christ's sake, and all of a sudden, he would not even look at me. I tried for years to bridge the gap, but it never worked. We never went back to what we were, and we became strangers living in the same household. When college finally rolled around, I had the grades to go out of state on a scholarship. There was no way that our mom would be able to afford to send either of us out of state on her income alone, and Jake did not qualify for any scholarships thanks to an injury that took him off the varsity team in the 11th grade. He did get into a pretty good college in our home state and applied for financial aid. Then he flunked out his freshman year with all the debt, no degree. Our mom convinced him to attend the local community college, so he did graduate eventually, but he seemed to have a drive to actually do anything with his life. Well, he'd spent years thinking that he'd be scouted as a professional athlete and live it up in an English town. When that went down the drain, he never really recovered. He had those lofty dreams of a life of luxury and no real road to it. Part of me feels for him. He had his life all planned out, and one wrong move on the pitch had all washed down the drain. Injuries. It could not have been easy emotionally to move past that, but he never even tried to. He put in absolutely no effort in his freshman year, blew our mother's money on a cheap beer and parties, and flunked out of what was really a respectable school because he could not pull himself together. He spent a year doing nothing in our mom's house before she finally convinced him to go back to school, by telling him that he'd have to get a job if he didn't. So he enrolled in a local community college, got a degree, and has done precisely nothing with it. From what I know, He's worked a couple of jobs, but he ended up quitting each one because either the hours were too long, the pay wasn't enough, or based on what my mother told me, his coworkers were too boring. He only ended up moving out of our mom's house late last year to move in with his girlfriend, who I'll go into more details about in a moment. Our relationship never really came back from our high school days. We went from your stereotypical pair of brothers to practically strangers, and it strayed that way when I left the state for school. I'd spent years trying to make up the difference all throughout high school, and I kind of just saw college as a chance for me to cut my losses, move on with my life. He was interested in having nothing to do with me, no sort of relationship at all, and I was tired of trying. So I moved and he stayed and we didn't talk. When graduation came around for me, I ended up settling down in my college town for a really good opportunity. I'd visit home for the holidays, and that's really the only time that Jake and I would even acknowledge each other's existence. We were cordial, but that was it. On one of those holiday visits, I end up reconnecting with someone from high school that I'd only known in passing. She'd been friends with Jake at the time, but they'd lost contact after graduation, and she'd only just come back to town after working abroad. We got on really well and started dating early last year. Long distance, since I was still based in my college town, but hey, we made it work. Then early this year, I ended up getting accepted for a really good position in the city I'm from. Considering both my mother and my girlfriend live there, I obviously jumped at the chance and I moved here about 6 months ago. Around the same time, my mom was looking to downsize and she was officially an empty nester since Jake had just moved out, so she offered me her house at a discount. Considering the housing market right now, I accepted immediately. This is going to be my first holiday season living back home, so I'm really excited about hosting Christmas since my mom usually does that, and hey, I have a house now. Jake wasn't thrilled about me buying the house, but Mom was going to sell it anyways, and he definitely could not afford it, so it is what it is. Okay, if you've read this far, that's pretty much the background that I think you need to know. The actual conflict of the situation starts here. Ever since I moved back home, at the suggestion of my girlfriend, I've been trying to patch things up with Jake. She's big on family, and honestly, I'm too outside of this whole mess with my brother. All things considered, high school was a long time ago, and well, I figured that maybe it's time to fix things, and he really hasn't been too receptive to it, but I can't say that I would have been either if he started trying to be all buddy-buddy with me again, out of nowhere. My girlfriend reminded me to give him time, so I have been. A couple days ago, though, he called me up and asked if I wanted to watch a soccer game with him. This was huge. Like huge. We used to watch it together all the time when we were kids since our dad had been massive soccer fans, and it was really the only way we could just connect with him after he passed. Obviously, I accepted, and I invited him over to have a few beers while we watched it. My girlfriend visiting my family out of town, and well, so it'd just be the two of us. He came over, we watched the game, had a beer, it was nice. We talked about work, I told him about a conference that I've been attending that could be great for my career, and he told me that he's recently left his job because the hours were insane, that his fiancée were very supportive of him looking for better opportunities. This was the first time that I'd heard that, they were engaged. Oh boy, it went downhill from there. I asked him about the engagement and he told me that he proposed with an heirloom ring from her family that her mother had passed down to her. He'd never mentioned it to me, and I asked if our mom knew. He told me that they were really just planning a small ceremony, so he wanted to tell her after the fact so she wouldn't be upset about missing it. That didn't really make sense to me, seeing as I know our mother would be hurt either way, but whatever. He told me that the wedding was actually why he wanted to see me. If you think that he was going to invite me to attend or even be his best man, I'll give you a second to just rein in your expectations. He had actually come over to ask me to pay for a diamond necklace for him to give to his fiancée as a wedding present. Oh no, not for me to gift it, but for me to pay for it in secrecy so that he could give it to her before the wedding next week. He's getting married next week and I found out about it 2 days ago. I said no. I just don't have the money to blow on a diamond necklace right now for a girl that I've never met, and frankly, even if I had the money, it's plain insulting to be asked to finance a gift for a wedding that I'm not invited to and didn't even know about. I told him as much, but his argument was that since I could afford to go on these fancy vacations, I could afford a little necklace. I'm not going on a vacation. I'm taking a work trip to a conference that I'm paying for because of how good of an opportunity it could be. Nothing about this is a vacation. Even if it was, it would still be my money that I'm spending that he would not be entitled to anyways. To make a long story short, he didn't take it well and proceeded to yell at me loud enough to scare the local wildlife until I asked him to leave. I'm crushed. Honestly crushed. Just when I thought that we were finally making progress, I found out that he was probably never interested in fixing our relationship to begin with. I can't ask my mom for advice because I haven't figured out how to tell her about his engagement, and my girlfriend's already dealing with a family emergency on her end. So I don't want to add more to her plate right now, you know? Guys, I just don't know what to think. Any advice at all would be so amazing. Hey, what's up everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So if you're new to the channel and you want daily videos just like today, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel. Take a second, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into update number 1. Hey, I didn't expect to ever update this beyond responding to some comments, but here I am. Before I get too far into this, I'd first like to thank everyone who actually read through my behemoth of an initial post. Reading it back, I can see that I may have provided a bit too much backstory, but I can't really change that now, so here we are. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple questions that I saw in the comments here, just to clear up misconceptions that my wording in my initial post may have made. Jake and I are 2 years apart, but he was only 1 grade ahead of me because he was born in November. That's it. It's not some big plot hole or proof that my post is fake. He had a late birthday and started 1st grade the next year. This is normal where I'm from. But maybe international users were confused. I don't know. I was also asked in a direct message why my mother did not tell me about the wedding. And I did mention it briefly, but to be clear, she doesn't even know about the engagement. That it is a present tense because I'm still working on how to tell her. I was considering contacting Jake and asking him to tell her himself, but unfortunately a more pressing matter has just came up. Well, I mentioned in my post that I was heading to a conference soon, right? I told Jake this a while ago that when he was over, and before he asked for money for the necklace, I'd even told him the dates that I'd be gone. I confirmed that my girlfriend, who does live with me, would be staying with her family while I was gone too. I didn't think anything of it at the time, and he didn't seem overly interested in it either, so I really didn't put too much together after I left my trip. Well, I got home late yesterday, and whichever you want to spin it. It was late. I got a taxi, went straight to bed when I got home, so early in the morning, late yesterday, whatever you want to call it. This morning I went to the garage to do the laundry from my trip, and my dad's car is gone. There's no signs of a break-in, and I know that Jake still has the garage code, but I didn't change it when I moved in. My best guess is that he took it to sell it and buy the stupid necklace for his fiancée. He never showed any interest in the car until I started to fix it up, and one of the only conversations we had over the holidays last year was about how much the car would be worth in good condition. The car's been sitting in our uncle's house for decades, and Jake has never even thought about it. But suddenly, it was all he could not stop talking about over Christmas dinner. I've tried calling him, but he's not picking up, and I don't have his fiancé's number, and I don't even know the girl's name. I'm going to have to call our mom and tell her everything that's been going on. I didn't want to be the one to tell her about the wedding, but I don't think I have a choice now. Update number 2. I know I just posted my last update literally hours ago, but I thought that this was important enough to warrant this. Jake left me a letter. To be precise, he left me a wad of cash and a letter confirming that he's taken the car and that he'd already sold it. I was gone all 4 days, and I don't really know how long it takes to sell a car for cash, but hey, he must have taken it in the moment I left because I can't imagine it takes any less than 4 days. The cash is apparently what was left over after the purchase of the necklace. Don't worry though, he made sure to tell me that he'd give back the rest of the money that he's made from the sale once he was married to his quote, rich girlfriend. He went to excessive detail about how even though I clearly always looked down upon him, he found a way to marry into money without even lifting a finger. That the necklace was all he needed to seal the deal and convince her and her family that he wasn't actually a gold digger. Once he could convince her to combine their finances, he'd be living large on her dime. I don't think I've ever been more disgusted with him. I've been disappointed in the trajectory he's taken in life a number of times, but I'd like to think that came from a place of love. Reading his letter, all I could feel was pure disgust. That wasn't the man who taught me how to ride a bike because our dad wasn't around to do it. This was some horrible creature wearing the skin of my brother and playing the people around him like pieces in a game. All I can think about is what my mom's going to think when I tell her. At least I know it won't be my word against his now, considering he's left me literally an essay of his own words to show her. I've never met his fiancée, but I honestly pity her. I don't know what she ever saw in him to have gotten this far, but I imagine he's never really spelled it out like it is to her. I have half a mind to find some way to contact her, and as it stands, I don't even know her name. I'm going to be calling up a friend of mine who works as an attorney to ask what I can do about the car, especially since it's already been sold. I hope there's some way to get it back, but if there isn't, I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive my brother. I don't know if I'll be able to even get it, even if I get the car back. I don't know. It was the only thing that I had left of my father, and Jake and Dad had a love for soccer. Dad and I had a love for cars. I couldn't have been happier than when I found out that my uncle had kept it all these years, and I couldn't be more crushed than I am right now. I just hope that I can get it back. Update number 3. I know I'm kind of just churning out these updates faster than anyone really cares for, but hey, at this point I'm treating this post as a form of therapy. So here we are for update 3, and to start, I told my mom about what Jake's done. I went over to her apartment with the letter and the cash because it felt a little too heavy to lay on her over the phone, and I told her everything. The wedding, the necklace, the car, everything. As you can probably expect, she was heartbroken. Despite the lack of brotherly love shared between Jake and me in the last decade, my mom had remained close to both of us. Up until, last year. Jake had still lived with her, and obviously she loves him with everything in her, and it was far from easy to hear about the engagement and wedding that he's kept from her. My mother is nothing if not a fighter. However, after the initial shock, she was mad. She, like me, could not believe that Jake would do this, and she believed that if he was going to behave like a hooligan, he would be treated as one too. She called him up, and to my surprise, he actually answered the phone. Well, she spent the better half of, 2 hours tearing him a new one before demanding that he drags himself over to our house right that instant and sort things out in person. Surprise, surprise, he was a no-show. He didn't pick up any further attempts at communication, and I'm pretty sure that he's blocked my number. My mom's a combination of angry and upset, and I don't blame her. However, I do think that Jake has made his bed. He stole my car, he's lying to his fiancée, he hurt our mom. I have already decided on my next course of action, and those of you who have been screaming at me to call the police can rest easy. I will be pursuing charges against him. I don't know how long it's going to take or even what the exact process is, but my hope is that Jake is going to face the consequences of his actions. I've wasted enough time wishing to have my brother back. He's chosen this path in life, and now he has to walk it. For the people who've direct messaged me to ask why I'm blowing up my brother's life over an old car that isn't even mine, it was my car. It was my dad's before he, passed away, and my uncle held on to it for years hoping to restore it one day, but he never really got around to do it. So, I started working on it late last year whenever I was in town and moved it to my garage when I moved back home this year. It's not an insanely rare, expensive car, but it's a classic, and in good condition, it'll probably go for a pretty penny. I was restoring it in my father's honor, not for the money, of course. I lost my father really young, and working on his car has been a way for me to connect with him. As I said, Jake did not care about the car until he found out what it could be sold for. I doubt he got anywhere near the price, considering my car was far from mint condition, and he sold it in such a rush. But he still likely got a good amount. Again, it's not about the money for me. It's about the car and what it meant to me. Update number 4. This will likely be my final update on the post, and the Cliff Note version of it is that my brother is going to be going away for a while. The messier version? Well, that starts with the fact that my girlfriend managed to get the wedding venue from an old high school friend. I filed a police report stating that my brother had stolen and illegally sold my car, and showed them the confession that he had so kindly left me. After filing the report, I guided the officers to him, considering I didn't know where his fiancée lived. I had no choice but to take them to the one place he was confirmed to be: the wedding venue. Part of me felt like a monster for doing what I knew would embarrass that poor girl and her family, but part of me also knew that if I didn't do it, she would not find out who she was really marrying until it was too late for her. Maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better, but part of me's glad that I at least spared her headache of finding out his true intentions months or years down the road, once it would be much bigger of a hassle to fix. I arrived at the wedding with 2 police officers in tow before the bride walked down the aisle and had my brother arrested at the altar. His would-be father-in-law demanded an explanation, and I was more than willing to read out the letter that he's left me to his family so they could see exactly who Jake was. By that point, the bride had come out of the room and she was waiting there, and she's heard everything. As I'm sure everyone would in her position, she called off the wedding, threw her bouquet of flowers in his face, and had a lot of choice words for him before she stormed off with her bridesmaids. The moment she left, her father started tearing into Jake, and I'm pretty sure that even the officers were caught off guard by how many explicit words he fit into every sentence because of all of us, and we just stood there and watched. I finally snapped. I snapped out of this little dream I'm in when her father turned and thanked me for saving his daughter from a lifetime of misery with Jake. I think something in my brother snapped when he heard that, because he lunged at me and got a couple of hits in before the officers pulled him off of me. We fought as kids, as I'm pretty sure all brothers do, and I haven't missed his punches. I'm pretty sure he's permanently messed up my jaw, but since he did it in front of actual police officers, he earned himself an aggravated assault charge to boot. For the record, his ceremony wasn't small at all. It was clear that his fiancé's family had spared no expenses for their daughter's big day, and well, the guest list definitely reflected that. Why he chose to tell me that it was a tiny ceremony that he cannot even invite our mother to is beyond me. Unfortunately for him, it was also meant to, every single one of his guests witnessed the whole scene. I can't say I feel too bad about it, ruining his reputation. To conclude, Jake has been arrested. The wedding is called off, and I'll be pressing charges both for the car and the punches. There isn't really much else to say on the matter, so I hope that this hasn't been a complete waste of your time to read. I do want to thank you all for everyone who's read this post from the initial entry up into the update. I never expected my life to go full soap opera mode, but I'm glad that I've had all of you to share it with to work it through. More than anything, I'm glad that it's over. Final update, it's not over yet. Hey there. I was never planning on updating this, but clearly I've got a taste for journaling online, because I figured I'd come back and give you a proper conclusion to everything that happened. It's been a few months since everything went down, so I think it's a good time for retrospective of it all. Firstly, Jake is in prison. There wasn't a trial or anything, and he pleaded guilty on all counts, and I'm pretty sure that he didn't put up a fight because my mother tore him a new one the second that she saw him. I don't really know what happened with his fiancée either after she contacted me to return the necklace he got her. There wasn't a receipt, but we did have a store location, and they were willing to refund the purchase after speaking to an officer about what happened. Secondly, And what I think is the most important bit, I got the car back. Jake had apparently sold it to a friend of his that he'd spoken to about the car months ago, so the explanation of it explains how he did it so quickly. That friend had been in attendance at the wedding and quickly caught on to what happened, and once I got the necklace refunded, I was able to return the money in exchange for the car. I have since changed the garage code and switched all locks in my house. For what it's worth though, Jake is not going to be anywhere near it for the foreseeable future anyways. And in case the car is safe and secure at home. I've had some time to unpack how I feel about the situation, and honestly, I'm expected to feel sad at some point, but that hasn't happened yet. I'm still so angry about what he did, and I don't really see that fading anytime soon. I'm glad that he's facing the consequences of his actions, and I don't really have anything else to say. That's really it, guys, and this post is really over. Honestly, I hope to never have another development to this story ever. I think the only thing good that came out of the end of this story was the fact that OP was able to get the car back. But that still doesn't really fix the relationship between OP and brother. It did break them up pretty devastatingly, and the fact that the brother was just going to try to lie to his significant other, get married to her, give her this expensive necklace and some sort of front to say, hey, I'm not a gold digger. I thought it was ridiculous, and I just want to know what you guys thought of the situation. Let me know in the comment section down below, guys. Thank you for joining me on today's video. It's a beautiful day today. I hope you guys are having a great day as well. And if you do want more daily videos, all you have to do is subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another round of videos. And, well, just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.